Hello everyone, this is Marshall Official. Welcome back to another video. This is going to be another update on the Russo Ukrainian war. We're going to be catching up on all the frontline updates, and from now on, this will probably be the main content of this channel. Just expect that. Just first off, they're off the battlefield on the diplomatic and political front. There's been very massive activity, mostly coming between the leaders of the major countries involved, that being Putin from Russia, Zelensky from Ukraine, and Trump from the United States. Major just been it's been a whole thing. Major talks, major comments being made by all sides, especially Zelensky and Trump. And honestly, I can't do it justice in a video talking about that and the front lines. That really deserves its own video. I will try to make something like that. I recently looked into DaVinci Resolve, which I heard which will help me make a whole lot more better videos. So I'm gonna try and be focusing on that and just figuring that whole thing and teach myself about that. But anyways, let's get into the frontline update, which is just me looking at the frontline updates for today, and I'll try to make a video about that in the near future to explain what's been going on. It's been very active. It's been very active on the diplomatic side. So starting off here in the Kursk region, we have a lot of changes. First of all, the Russian forces have made significant gains here to the west. Ukrainian forces have retreated completely out of the territory of the Russian Federation across the border in this area from Suravka to Novenka. These are Ukrainian border villages, and they've retreated back, I'm guessing, back to these villages or over here to the east, and they have left this part of Russia right here. This area right here, they have pulled out of that. It is now in the gray zone, and the Russian forces have secured this town of Sverdlikovo. This town has been contested for quite a while, but they have finally secured it. Ukrainian forces have made a counterattack and recaptured some forested areas and open field up here to the north. They've also pushed and recaptured the town of Kositsa. And we also have some big news down here to the south. Ukrainian forces launched a big counterattack here to the south, where they recaptured. Originally, they recaptured part of the entirety of this village right here. The Russian forces counterattacked and were able to re-enter and recapture this forested area. However, the Ukrainians still hold ground here to the south. They have captured the very small village of Vanasivka and have tried to push into the large town of Ulanok. However, they have been unable to do that, and it's been unchanged for the last couple of days, but this has been a change that has happened since my last update. Overall, the Russian strategy on this part of the front remains the same. Ukrainian forces seem to be trying to effectively distract the Russians with smaller pushes up here to the north. But the Russian forces, Russian forces' overall strategy seems to remain the same. They've effectively secured this part of the front right here, and they're still trying likely to push towards the rear of Sudzha while continuing their push from this direction as well. But the Ukrainian forces are launching counterattacks to try and distract the Russians and slow them down. Moving on from that part of the front line to the Kursk part of the front line, we have a very small change in this front line right here. We have Russian forces were able to capture about 2 city blocks in the town of Volchansk. This front has been somewhat interesting because originally for months we saw nothing. There was absolutely nothing on this part of the front line. So the fact that we're seeing anything is interesting, but this is likely only the result of some minor skirmishing happening in the town between a few Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. So it's not really that big of a deal. But we have seen a change here, the third one in the last 2 months. We've seen this advance, this one, and this one over here. Moving on from that part of the front line, we have Russian forces. I told you in my last update, the Russian forces were skirmishing on the border. They apparently have been able to capture and secure this forested area. The border cuts right through this forested area. Russian forces have secured that forested area and have also captured this tree line right here across the border. Their bridgehead across the Oskil River, southwest of Topoli, has not changed, but they do maintain it. They still have control of it, and the Russian forces are likely at some point going to make a serious attempt to capture this and secure that this will allow them a foothold to possibly begin branching off into just further off into Ukraine in the Kharkiv region from this direction. We have some changes over here on the much larger Oskil crossing down here to the south. Russian forces have pushed north and captured a few more tree lines up here to the north. And again, it looks like it could be possibly a push to link up with the grouping up here. Russian forces have also pushed west and captured these forested areas, fully securing Russian control over the town of Dvorchna. And they've also captured another forested area and a few tree lines down here to the south, west of Zapadne. Other than that, no major changes, but these changes are still happening, and that is all for this part of the front line. Moving on, we do have a significant-sized Ukrainian counterattack, where the Ukrainian forces basically recaptured the entire town of Zarizove. This happened a couple days ago, but again, that's all for this part of the front line. For here to the south, Russian forces were able to secure the entire village of very tiny village of Novohirivka, and they've pushed towards the town, also very tiny town of Sverdlikovo. I butchered that. I'm sorry, but that's the best I can do. And that's all for this part of the front line. We've seen recurring minuscule changes from this part of the front line, from basically from here down to here. We've seen recurring small changes, mostly from the result of just skirmishing, that there's a fight and somebody retreats, and it's not that big. It's not really a real offensive or real attack. It just kind of happens. But we have been seeing that happen in the favor of the Russian forces on this part of the front line. So there is news for the Russian forces on this part of the front line as well. Same as with down here. They secured a small force that passed right here, and another one right here to the southwest of Makiivka. For the south here, I guess on the Liman front, I guess you could call this, or the Tourette's front, the Russian forces have captured most of Yampolivka. They've also secured part of the forested area here to the east, and the Russian forces are in general trying to push from their bridgehead, push this way, generally in this direction, north, south, east, all directions. But here in this eastern part, they are still trying to push in the southern direction along this highway towards Tourette's. And the Russian forces hope to at some point fully secure this area for an attack on Liman. On the Chasiv Yar part of the front line, we have one change. Here to the south of Chasiv Yar, Russian forces have made an advance through the forested area. Most of Chasiv Yar is under, about a majority of Chasiv Yar is under Russian control at this point. The Russian forces are definitely in favor to win the battle at this point, but it has been dragging on for quite some time. I would say at the earliest, by the end of February, Chasiv Yar will probably be under Russian control. And when I say I am including this part and also this part as part of Chasiv Yar. By the end of February, this area will likely be under Russian control, and that maybe even this area down here as well. Moving on to the Tourette's part of the front line, we have a few changes, small changes. Russian forces were able to secure this area up here to the north of Tourette's, as well as this part of it right here, this residential area. They were able to secure the final remaining part of Tourette's down here. So Tourette's is at this point completely under Russian control effectively. And this part of the front line, the Ukrainian forces retreated from these last few houses down here towards the west, where Russian forces have been pushing from the east towards the west, and also from the south north through the large town of Shcherbinivka, and it's a line of fairly large villages in this entire area. Russian forces have captured about half of it at this point. So the Russian forces are continuing their offensive on the Tourette's part of the front line and have gained small pieces of ground. After the Russian forces have mopped up the final parts of the immediate area around Tourette's, we can expect a push westward as well as north towards Kostyantynopil. All right, we have pretty significant changes on this part of the front line. Russian forces have now truly cut. They have pushed forward and cut the TO 504 highway, which links Pokrovsk all the way to Kostyantynopil. You can see it kind of moves right here. You see the yellow right there. That's where the highway goes. And the Russian forces have now cut that highway. This is a big deal, as this road was in previous months very crucial for the Ukrainians. It was already pretty much useless to the Ukrainians. The Russian forces just got so close to it, but they have now physically cut the highway. At the same time, they captured several villages. They captured part of Zeleny Pole, crossing over this. Looks like some sort of reservoir or a mine or something. And they've also captured the two towns of Voldyane Bruhe and Berezivka. I've captured whatever that is. I'm not sure what that is. It looks like some sort of power plant or something. Captured several tree lines, and they've also begun trying to take the village of Zalisativka. That is all for this part of the front line. Over here in the west, however, to the southwest of Pokrovsk, Ukrainian forces have been on the attack, launching counterattacks. I mentioned in my previous video how there were Ukrainian counterattacks on this part of the front line, but there were no confirmed changes. We do have some changes at this point. The red that you see here, the Russian advances, these are Russian counterattacks to the Ukrainian counterattacks. Originally, the Ukrainian forces had captured most of the village of Pishane. However, we now have proof that the Russian forces have counterattacked and have retaken the village of Pishane, pushing the Ukrainians back towards these tree lines to the west, to the southwest of Zvorove. The Ukrainian forces did manage to capture several tree lines here. They made a big advance up here to the north, capturing multiple tree lines, pushing along the highway. I couldn't tell if that was a railway. No, it's a highway. Pushing along the highway, and I've recaptured the mines up here to the north, and several tree lines along here, and also pushing into the town of Kotlone. Russian forces still cut this path to Polkrovsk, but the Ukrainian forces are counterattacking. They've also recaptured the town of Lysivka. They briefly entered the town of Dachensky. Russian forces then counterattacked and pushed them out of it, but the Ukrainian forces have still maintained all these positions that they did recapture, including these tree line areas over here to the west, and of course the Lysivka itself. Russian forces over here to the western side of the Polkrovsk front still, however, did manage to capture and push back into the town of Udachne. The Russian forces, as they capture this village I mentioned before, they'll be right on the doorstep of reaching the next oblast over. They'll be about just under 2 miles away before they push into the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. So at this point, the Ukrainian forces are on the counterattack, using whatever they have left at this point to counterattack in several directions. Russian forces are already regaining their composure from this counterattack and are pushing back in several places. For now, this front line has been stalemated. The Ukrainian forces might still be gaining some ground. The Russian forces might be retaking some ground. But for now, it's stalemated. The Russian forces probably at this point need time to regroup and get their forces back together to actually take the city of Polkrovsk. And it's not just Polkrovsk, but also the very big surrounding areas like Mirnograd, Rashuzhne. But the Russian forces are likely to soon restart their offensive on this part of the front line once the Ukrainian counterattack has been fizzled out. Moving on here to the south, Russian forces captured some tree lines here to the south, as well as pushing through the town of Zaporizhzhine, something like that. We have significant Russian gains here to the south. They have captured almost the entirety of the town of Andriivka. Town sort of a city, not really, but you can see this. I've said it many times, but this is basically the last part of southern Donetsk that is major for the Ukrainians, and it's basically gone at this point. The Russian forces have basically captured; it's basically done. And with that would be throwing the towel for southern Donetsk. Everything below this line at this point will soon be under Russian control in the Donetsk Oblast. There's nothing left. There's nowhere for the Ukrainians to retreat to. There's no rear line. That's it. They've lost Sverdlikovo. They've lost Kurakhove. They lost they lost these major cities over here: Hrynik, Kurakhove, Sverdlikovo, and Volodar. Volodar was what started all of this. So this is pretty much the end for southern Donetsk. The battle for central Donetsk, however, is just beginning. Terez has fallen, but Polkrovsk is still standing. Chasiv Yar is, for now, still standing. The battle for central Donetsk is still well underway. It's not going to be over for a very long time, but southern Donetsk is basically done. At this point, the battle for southern Donetsk is coming to an end. It may take a while for Russian forces to actually fully secure southern Donetsk, but it's not a stronghold anymore. There's no strongholds left in southern Donetsk. Russian forces have basically won this part of the front, but they've also advanced here to the southeast of Andriivka, pushing into the town of Ulakly, and have basically surrounded the Ukrainians east of Ulakly. But some say the Ukrainian forces have already managed to pull out completely, and they have already retreated. May be true, not sure. We don't have any genuine proof of that. But again, this whole area will soon be under Russian control. Russian forces also advanced here, capturing multiple tree lines. You can zoom out. These are pretty big advances. Again, Andriivka has basically fallen at this point, and Ulakly is being attacked. Ukrainian forces, if there are still Ukrainians to the east, they are going to be trapped. They are already basically trapped. So that it's a disaster for the Ukrainians on this part of the front line. Moving on here to the south, we have some Russian advances through the tree lines. Again, up here to the north of Velikovo, they crossed the river and started pushing into the town of Novocheretsuvate. Sorry about that, I can't say that one. We have a bigger Russian advancement here to the south through multiple tree lines, all just in general pushing out from the Vlyknovskoye area and just pushing in this general direction, heading towards the border for the next oblast. So Russian forces, this is basically the mop up stage for southern Donetsk. Everything below this area right here is pretty much throwing in the towel for the Russians at this point. But central Donetsk is the battle for central Donetsk is only just beginning. It has Turets was kind of like the first part of it. Now we have Chasiv Yar, and we also now have we also have the battle for Pokrovsk, and this will be like the start for this battle for central Donetsk, which is just beginning. And that is all. That is all the updates for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, please leave a like, leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, and press the bell notification to keep the show running. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.